All right, let's dive into this incredible scientific detective story. It's all about a fundamental mystery. How does your body stop itself from attacking itself? It's a mystery that plays out on a microscopic scale, but as you'll see, the solution has huge implications for every single one of us.
You know, right now, inside your body, there are literally trillions of microscopic peacekeepers. And their job isn't what you might think. They're not out there fighting off the flu or some bacteria. No, their job is, well, it's way more subtle. They're the security guards, the bouncers, constantly on patrol, just keeping things in balance.
So what are they doing? Their one and only job is to stop your powerful immune system from going rogue and attacking you. So the big question is, what happens when they fail? Because when they do, that's where our whole story begins.
Okay, so let's get into the heart of the problem. This is a puzzle that's stumped scientists for, over 100 years. Think about it. Your immune system is this incredibly powerful army, right? So how on earth does it know not to attack its own home base? How does it tell the difference between a friend and a foe? That is the puzzle of self-tolerance.
Let's stick with that army analogy for a second, because it really works. The big players are your T cells. You've got your generals. Those are the helper T cells. They're the ones who spot trouble, sound the alarm, and get the troops organized. Then you've got the soldiers, the killer T cells. They're the front line, going in and taking out infected cells, even tumors. A seriously powerful force, and we'd be lost without it.
But what happens when that powerful army gets it wrong? When it starts seeing friendly fire? Well, the results can be devastating. That's exactly what an autoimmune disease is. Think multiple sclerosis, type 1 diabetes. It's the body's defense system literally turning on itself. In fact, early scientists were so freaked out by this idea they came up with a name for it. Horror autotoxicus, the horror of self-poisoning. Pretty intense, right?
So this is where our detective story really kicks off. For decades, the whole field was just stuck on this problem. But then our first detective enters the scene. One scientist who just had this feeling, this hunch, that everyone was missing something crucial.
So back in the 1980s, there was this idea floating around about suppressor T cells, cells that could calm the immune system down. But honestly, it was a totally discredited theory. Everyone thought the research was garbage and had moved on. The idea was basically dead, but not for everyone. A scientist in Japan named Shimon Sakaguchi, he was swimming against the current. He just couldn't shake the feeling that something didn't quite add up.
And its big clue came from this really weird old experiment. Check this out. Scientists took newborn mice and removed their thymus. That's the organ where T cells grow up. But here's the crazy part. If they waited just 3 days after birth to do it, the mice didn't get a weaker immune system. Their immune systems went completely haywire and started attacking their own bodies. And that was it. That was the light bulb moment. It meant something in the thymus was actively stopping this from happening. It was a prevention system.
Okay, so after working on this for more than a decade, Sakaguchi came up with this just elegant experiment. It was so clever. Here's what he did. First, he took all the helper T cells from a healthy mouse. Then, and this is the key part, he found a way to pull out a very specific small group of those cells, ones that had a little protein marker on them called CD25. And finally, he took the leftover T cells, the ones without that CD25 group, and injected them into a mouse that had no immune system.
And the result? It was crystal clear, absolutely undeniable. The mice that got the T cells without that CD25 group, they got incredibly sick with all kinds of autoimmune diseases. But, and here's the kicker, if he took that tiny group of CD25 cells and added them back into the mix, the mice were perfectly fine, totally healthy. Boom, he'd found them. He'd found the peacekeepers. So this was huge. He proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that these specific cells were the ones keeping everything in check. But there was still a huge piece of the puzzle missing, a giant question mark. Okay, he found the cells, but what was telling them what to do? What was their master switch? To find that answer, our story has to take a sharp turn and look at a completely different investigation.
All right, Act 2, and this part of our story doesn't start in a fancy lab. It starts with a mouse, a really strange, sick little mouse that was basically a genetic accident that popped up way back in the 1940s. Decades go by, and scientists figure out that this strain of mice, which they called scurfy, had this deadly autoimmune disease that was passed down through its genes. They traced it to a single mistake, a single typo on the X chromosome. Now get this, the mouse X chromosome has 170 million times million DNA base pairs. Finding one tiny typo in all that? Well, that was the mission for our next set of detectives.
So two researchers, Mary Brunkow and Fred Ramsdell, decide to take on this monumental task. And we're talking about the 1990s here, so this isn't something you can just run through a computer in an afternoon. This was years of grinding, painstaking lab work. It was a true needle in a haystack hunt, narrowing things down tiny piece by tiny piece.
Finally, after all that work, they narrowed it down to a small region on the chromosome with 20 possible genes. So they started checking them, one by one. The first one? Nope. The second? Nothing. They went through 19 potential genes and came up empty every single time. You can imagine the frustration. But then, on the very last one, number 20, bingo. They found it. A tiny error that basically broke the gene. It was a gene nobody had ever identified before. They called it FOXP3.
Okay, so this is the moment. This is where our two totally separate stories, Sakaguchi's mystery cell and Brunkow and Ramsdell's mystery gene, are about to smash right into each other. And when they do, they're going to solve everything.
So let's put the two pieces on the table. On one side, you have Sakaguchi's discovery, a special T cell that stops autoimmunity from happening. On the other side, you have Brunkow and Ramsdell's discovery, a single broken gene that causes autoimmunity. Think about that for a second. A cell that prevents it, a gene that causes it. See where this is going? They were the same story. The broken gene was the reason the peacekeeper cell was missing. It wasn't two different mysteries at all. It was two halves of the same incredible answer. That gene, FOXP3, was the master switch. It's the instruction manual, the blueprint that tells the body how to make and operate Sakaguchi's peacekeeper cells. And that's when they got their official name, regulatory T cells, or Tregs for short. And just like that, this discovery connected all the dots for the entire field of immunology. So here's what's happening on the ground. Imagine one of your normal T cells makes a mistake. It gets a little jumpy and decides to attack one of your own healthy cells. Before it can go rogue and cause a real problem, a Treg, which is basically running the FOXP3 software, cruises by, steps in, and tells it to calm down. It's like a bouncer de-escalating the situation before a fight breaks out.
Okay, so this is a fantastic story of scientific discovery, right? But what does it actually mean for us? Well, finding these peacekeepers and, more importantly, finding their master switch, that wasn't just a cool academic finding. It has completely blown open a new door for modern medicine.
What this discovery gave us, essentially, is a volume dial for the immune system. We can now think about turning it up or turning it down depending on the problem. So for an autoimmune disease, the immune system is way too loud, right? The goal is to turn it down. And that's what scientists are doing now, developing therapies to boost your Treg population. But for something like cancer, it's the opposite. The immune system is too quiet. You see, tumors are clever. They actually recruit Tregs to act as bodyguards to protect them. So the strategy there is to get rid of those Tregs, turn the volume up, and let the killer T cells go to work.
So that's where we are today, and it really leaves you with this one big thought. For more than 100 years, our own immune system was this powerful but unpredictable force of nature. But now we're finally learning how to speak its language, how to actually command its internal security force. And as we get better and better at using that dial, at turning our immune response up or down when we need to, you have to wonder, are we standing on the edge of a whole new era in medicine?